At Home in Special Ministries Chapter 9. At home in special ministries, often I wished and prayed for an entire family in our church like Bro Ains had. Bro Michel Fagali and his wife were kind, godly peacemakers who provided a stabilizing force among our campers. I remember that Raymond would often try to toughen up the young men by telling them that they were Shabab Nylon. 2 of their boys were musical, so I arranged to sing a beautiful 3-part harmony hymn with them for a camp special. I could hardly keep back the tears as we sang with beautiful harmony, something our people were not accustomed to. Arabic music tends to unison in a minor key. After the service I was expecting some compliments for the beautiful music. But people commented, "What was wrong with you? Every one of you went off on a different path." The beautiful music that moved me emotionally struck them as disjointed chaos. Sunday school ministry reaching the children was doubly important. Important because children could be taught and won. It was also important for the health and future of the church. The children would become the church and leaders of tomorrow. 119 Cast your bread. So from the beginning of the Tripoli Faith Baptist Church ministry, Sunday school was emphasized. First, Kathleen began teaching the children, then God gradually gave young people to join in the ministry. There was no Sunday school material in Arabic, so that became a priority to develop and translate. Lessons from child evangelism were translated, mostly by our Arabic teacher, and were especially helpful. We proofread them for doctrinal accuracy. Over the 17 years in Lebanon, a body of material with flannel graph was built up for Sunday school ministry. Teacher training, young people's programs and materials were also translated or developed for use in the church and camp ministries. However, the war would destroy all of that valuable, irreplaceable material. Sunday school class new children were difficult to get and keep in Sunday school because of religious fanaticism, as was discussed in a previous section of this book. In 1971 a special effort was launched to increase the Sunday school attendance in Tripoli. A cardboard rocket was placed on a 45-degree wire, extending to the high ceiling of the church. As attendance grew, the rocket was pushed up towards the goal mark of 100, which was the signal for liftoff. The goal was reached with a record of 103. And the students slid to the edge of their seats and watched with bated breath for liftoff, hoping for a successful launch. However, some unforeseen technical problems occurred, and the rocket misfired, spewing smoke into the church while remaining on the launch pad. But the students still thought it was hilariously funny, so they were satisfied nonetheless. This was the first and last time in our long ministry when it could be said that we had a smoking church. The young man who designed the stellar rocket later immigrated to Australia. Perhaps this embarrassing failure of his technology caused him to exit Lebanon. Not really. Someday he would become a vital part of a new church in Australia. 120 At home in special ministries. The birth of 2 missionaries. Missionary children make great missionaries. Kathleen was expecting our first baby when we began the first Bible preaching services in our home. Before that, many ladies would pat Kathleen's tummy and ask, "Why no baby?" So when she became pregnant and showed, they were really excited. Now they patted her tummy and asked, "How is baby?" After that they would always say, "May God give you a boy." That is their highest compliment and noble wish. They would never ask God to give you a girl. That would be a cultural insult. The boy carries on the family name and may be the family business. So most people want boys. It is strongly embedded into the culture. When a baby boy named Samir is born, the mother and father get new names, which show privilege and status. She becomes Samir, mother of Samir, and the father becomes Abu Samir, father of Samir. If a girl is born, nothing is changed. Birth of our first daughter Melody. Visit with Dr. Antoine Melky, who delivered both girls. 1993. When Kathleen started contractions early on a Sunday morning, I took her to the hospital, returned for the Sunday preaching in our home, and then I rushed back to the hospital. When the baby girl Melody was born, Kathleen knew from the look on the doctor's face and the nurse's face that she had done the unthinkable. She had a girl. They didn't say anything, but if she had given birth to a boy, all would have been excited with big smiles and vigorous congratulations. When the doctor presented us with the bill as he dismissed Kathleen from the hospital, he apologized that he was not able to give us a boy. I told him that he shouldn't feel bad since he had nothing to do with that. God had given us a girl, and we were very happy. The same response was repeated 121. Cast your bread. When Shirlene, our second daughter, was born, many felt that God did not love us or he would have given us boys. When Kathleen went to the large ABC variety store on Tripoli's Main Street, the girls employed as salespeople rushed around her asking what she had. She smiled really big and said, "A girl." Their faces dropped, and they said, "Are you serious?" They could not believe that someone who had a girl could honestly smile. A good friend of mine, a very educated man, came to congratulate us. He asked, "What did you have?" Again, she smiled infectiously and said, "A girl." His face dropped, and he said incredulously, "Are you crazy?" John and Janet Haynes and family, 1959. God wonderfully provided Juanita Haynes and her daughter Marie, who came from Beirut to help Kathleen for several days after coming home with Melody. Her husband and family were a great blessing to us during the first year when we traveled to Beirut every weekend to minister in the RAS Beirut Church. We often spent the weekend night at their home. Her experienced presence with Kathleen and baby Melody gave a wonderful start to motherhood. God bless the Haynes and other helpful people put into our lives at just the needed time. The two girls whom God gave us were His precious gifts to us. As parents, we committed them to the Lord before they were born, and we dedicated ourselves to give our daughters a genuine Christian home in the bonds of Christ's love. That would require dedicated parents who would live consistent lives before them and would teach them obedience through godly discipline. We wanted to prove to our daughters from infancy that we cared about every aspect of their lives and that we would always be there for them. We worked together, played together, and served the Lord together. The girls would become a great asset to our ministry and would be the best advertisement for the Christianity that we represented. 122. At home in Special Ministries Missionary Children's Education Family Picture, 1962. Girls at TGS ages 4 and 5, 1966. The education of missionary children is often a problem. We wanted our children to have a proper English education for their future. They would grow up and make their own choices where the Lord would have them to serve. And we very much wanted our children to be bilingual. Children make fabulous missionaries with their parents and greatly enhance the ministry. In this situation, Kathleen homeschooled the girls with the limited correspondence material that was available. The main correspondence course was simply a selection of student books and huge teachers' editions of the books along with a recommended schedule of the material to be covered each day. There was no Bob Jones University Press, ABECA, or ACE or other correspondence programs available for homeschooling in those days. Preparation for Kathleen was laborious, wading through the huge teacher's editions, trying to glean some direction. I can hardly fathom how Kathleen did it all with everything else she had to do. Kathleen began with kindergarten for both girls and taught them up to high school. We placed the girls in the Tripoli Girls' School for a proper Arabic education as well. They did not take the English courses there since they were taking them in homeschooling. Keeping up with education in both languages put a lot of pressure on Kathleen. Sometimes when one of the girls had an Arabic class and the other one did not, Kathleen 123 Cast Your Bread Olive Groves Hikali, Sunday Best on Tripoli Street in Kathleen and Girls in Front of 1960 or 61 Front of First Opal, 1964 or 5 Hikali House, 1965 would teach one girl the English classes in the car while the other one was in her Arabic class at Tripoli Girls' School. Shirlene was naturally left-handed. She said that the teacher in Arabic school hit the palm of their hands with the sharp edge of a ruler if they talked in class or wrote with their left hands. She said that she was never hit, but we were not sure whether it was because she was blonde or because she was good. The Lebanese went crazy over blonde hair and fair complexion. When the girls first entered the school, their feet hardly touched the ground during recess because the older girls carried them around and passed them from one to the other. A visit to the principal ensured that they learned to walk across the playground. On the family front in July 1968, the girls had just finished Arabic school, and now their mother was starting with next year's English school program that she taught at home. This would continue full steam all summer so that when Arabic school started in October, she could cut down on homeschooling in English. It was a real struggle to try to keep up the two school programs, English and Arabic, but we were thrilled to see the girls learning Arabic. It would be a blessing to them then and in the future. By September 1971 camps were over for the summer, but we remained in the camp to finish some work. Kathleen put on the pressure during this time, teaching the girls daily from about 7:30 a.m. until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock each evening. When we went down to our home at the end of the month, the girls returned to Arabic school for reading, writing and Arabic grammar plus piano lessons twice a week. 124 at home in Special Ministries. By May 1975 we faced a dilemma with high school and homeschooling. We considered changing from homeschooling our daughters to putting them in a high school in Beirut. Kathleen would stay with them during the week and return to Tripoli on weekends. Kathleen felt she had reached her limit on content. Hester family, 1969. However, with the precarious situation in the country, it seemed unwise for our family to be divided. Curfews, civil commotions, war, and bloodshed were unpleasant enough to live amongst without having my wife and daughters away and maybe trying to get home. We were also encouraged to continue correspondence work because of the girls' good record the previous year of furlough when they were enrolled in Bob Jones Academy. So Melody was enrolled in 9th grade and Shirlene in 8th grade correspondence. This would require some help from both of us and perhaps even outside help, if available. At the last minute the Lord provided a fine Christian girl who graduated from Bob Jones University that summer to teach the girls at home. Vilma was a Lebanese from Beirut, her home language was French, and she taught the girls French daily in addition to the English correspondence curriculum. She felt that the Lord was leading her to accept the offer to teach our girls that year. God so wonderfully worked out all the details, and it was just great. Both of the girls were doing well, which was cause for thanksgiving. One thing was sure, the girls' education was neither stinted nor stunted whatsoever because of being on a foreign field. To the contrary, they were strong academically as well as gaining another language and insight into the culture of another people. Knowing another language widens one's perspective and abilities. When November 1975 came, the girls' schooling was about the only thing that hadn't suffered during those troubled times. Years later, when our daughter Shirlene went to Bob Jones University to study accounting, some of her roommates were bewailing her deprivation of not having a boyfriend and having been brought up in Lebanon. She countered, "Oh, I am so deprived. Can you speak another language? Have you ever been to Paris or London or Berlin? Have you ever seen a koala bear or a kangaroo? 125 Cast your bread. Why, I ride a kangaroo to school every day, one that travels a specified route. I put my school books in his pouch. Have you ever done anything like that? How deprived you are. I feel so sorry for you." Even more amazing was the fact that the girl who had a boyfriend initially believed her story. Melody, our oldest daughter, completed a master's degree in elementary education at Bob Jones University. During college she was often the dictionary for foreign students, even a girl from Lebanon. 35 years later, after leaving Lebanon, Melody returned for the first time to visit and ministered to ladies fluently in Arabic. No one should worry about the deprived missionary children, they are ahead of stateside children hands down. Naba Seifa Camp. The first joint fellowship camp was held in Naba Seifa and was sponsored by 2 other churches and our Tripoli Faith Baptist Church. The camp location was beautiful with the surrounding Lebanese forested mountains. There is no rain in the summer season, so the weather was perfect. In the tents and little huts, people slept under blankets at night, and what a welcome relief that was from the hot, sultry sea coast of Beirut and Tripoli. But most important were the spiritual blessings. Probably the camp did more for the people in one short week than could have been done in 6 months otherwise. Camp ministry was uniquely effective in Lebanon. People were so bound by religious and family ties, thus, the free atmosphere of a summer camp away from these many distractions offered a tremendous opportunity for Christian growth. Some very significant decisions were made, and a number of believers rededicated their lives and were greatly strengthened in the Lord. Succeeding camps increased in attendance and spiritual results. I was beginning to feel an increasing burden for a permanent camp location that would cater to the ministry in North Lebanon. The culture of Lebanon, with its cool mountains near the hot, humid sea coast, fit well with the summer camp ministry. People needed a place where they felt close to God, and then were challenged with God's Word. They would be more likely to make good spiritual decisions. Also, the disciplined atmosphere of summer camp with its requirements of campers to make their beds, help with cleaning and exercises in the fresh mountain air was attractive to parents of children from the various 126 at home in special ministries. Naba Safa Camp Free Time. Naba Safa Camp Girls and Haddad Kids Swing Religions. The camps had a healthy effect on the children, and the parents recognized that. I believed that God could and would use His Word in their lives regardless of the religious fanaticism and persecution at home. Having these young people for 1 or 2 full weeks in an undistracted atmosphere to present the claims of Christ was truly an unreal opportunity in that country. For those powerful reasons, I came to the strong conviction that God was leading us to expand into a camp ministry in North Lebanon. Thus, I began a serious search for property in the mountains of North Lebanon, at least 4,000 feet in altitude and with a cover of pine trees that would be very suitable for a conference site. But it would prove difficult to find. Camp property located early in 1969, God provided an unbelievably suitable site outside of Beit Mendera, a village high in the Lebanese mountains, below the famous cedars of Lebanon. The site was about 3 acres in size, including a small inclusion that was later purchased in 2010. The property was purchased for a very reasonable price, and several churches sent special gifts to help. The property was located about a quarter of a mile off a main road and was on an old, dirt road that was no longer used. It was hidden from view from the main road. At the time, it was rarely frequented except by shepherds with their flocks of sheep and goats, and 127 Cast Your Bread Tripoli Camp Group at Naba Safa, 31 in number, 1960. Naba Safa Camp MRS Ains Teaching Kids Naba Safa Mid-Morning Bible Class 128 at Home in Special Ministries Camp Buildings by owners of local vineyards. Today a few nice homes have been built along the old road by the camp. The scenery of this site exceeded any camp conference site in the world that I have ever seen. The camp consisted of a higher section with pine trees and a lower section of vineyards separated by a steep incline. A stadium-like complex of seats was constructed on the steep incline. The camp speaker stood at the bottom of the incline, and the audience could see the panorama of mountains to either side and then the huge plain of olive trees in the Kora with the city of Tripoli and the spectacular Mediterranean Sea beyond the Kora. This was the Grand Canyon of Lebanon, a breathtaking sight that inspired awe of the magnificent creation of our Almighty Creator. God at work finding such a magnificent campsite and purchasing it for a reasonable price was no small blessing from the Lord. From the beginning we saw God's hand at work, meeting our needs in unusual ways. We needed electricity as soon 129 Cast Your Bread as possible, so I went to the Kadisk company on Azmi Street in Tripoli, where I was referred to an engineer who had studied in America. While in the U.S., this engineer had been shown kindnesses by a Christian couple who loved foreign students, and he had a positive attitude towards Americans. We really hit it off and soon became good friends. He just happened to be over the department responsible for what I needed for the camp. The camp property was a good distance away from the nearest electrical transformer, which was currently in the middle of the village, Beit Mendera. Several owners of villas on the edge of the village, halfway between the transformer and our property, had been trying for a long time to get electricity for their buildings, without success. Our friend had the electric line constructed and functioning in 29 days. Not only did we have electricity, but the villas between the camp and the village also received electric service. The people of the village were blown away, could hardly believe it. How could an American get electricity in 29 days? A coincidence? Hardly. There would be more. I sketched out the buildings I was planning, and asked my friend, the engineer at Kadisk, for some advice. He insisted on doing all the formal plans for the 4 buildings and securing the building permits, all as a gift to us. We only had to pay the government fees. Yes, God was working. Those sincere believers in America, who showed kindness in Jesus' name to a Lebanese foreign exchange student, have a part in the miracles that demonstrated God's blessing upon this project. Construction began by late April 1969, work began, preparing the site with the construction of some retaining walls and a concrete road slanted across the steep incline to provide access from one level to the other. A bulldozer cut out the road across the incline. A local man with a small tractor and two-wheel trailer was bringing gravel for mixing concrete down the yet dirt road. I warned him to put the tractor in low gear and let the heavy trailer push the tractor without applying any brakes. The man began to berate me, saying, "You are just a pastor, and you know about theology, but you know nothing about this work. This is my field of knowledge." The man proceeded down the steep road, and the weight of the trailer pushed the tractor hard. The man panicked and applied the brakes, which caused the tractor tires to lose grip and start sliding out of control. The tractor overturned on the expert in his field. Miraculously, all the work crew 130 at home in Special Ministries Girls' Dorm 1 floor only, 1969 building our house, 1969 shuffleboard and ping pong, 1969 girls on bench at camp, 1969 steep road soccer field, boys dorm steep camp road 131 cast your bread dining area and kitchen building, 1969 dining area, 1969 dining area empty, 1969 were able to move the tractor enough to release the man unhurt. Sometimes it is better to listen to a pastor who knows theology, especially when he was raised on a farm and ranch and began driving a tractor at the age of 7. By June the building permit came through, and construction began on 4 two-story buildings, a girls' dormitory on the upper level, a boys' dormitory on the lower level, a kitchen and family building on the upper level and a director's apartment building on the upper level. I supervised the project, as much as a preacher who is thought to know nothing except theology can do, and worked manually with every phase. 132 at home in Special Ministries I installed the electrical wiring and transmission cables between the buildings. I had to have extra hands for this work, and my daughters filled the bill with finesse. The friends who rebuked me, an educated person, for washing my car must have been horrified. The camp property was enclosed with a strong barbed wire fence, a skill I learned in my childhood on the ranch. Staff left. Dorm soccer field. Many of the things I learned from my father as a boy on the farm were utilized. Chalita, a hard-working, unskilled laborer, and I planted 1,000 snowbar pines, 50 Lebanese cedars and 300 pencil evergreen trees. The first 2 years we carried buckets of water to the small saplings during the hot, dry summers to give them a good start. During the Civil War all but 60 of these lovely saplings would either be eaten by Clyde Ains, Richard Hester, Michelle the goat herds because the fence had fugly been dismantled and stolen, or they would later be cut down for firewood by the occupying soldiers. All this destruction literally broke my heart. During the beginning of the Civil War, missionary Clyde Ains came, and we built forms for constructing a long retaining wall for a soccer field in the vineyard portion of the lower level. Suitable wood and bracing for forms were scarce, so we made do with what we could improvise. On one occasion the forms moved from the excessive weight of the concrete and rocks. Years later, well-meaning spectators commented that the retaining wall had broken and moved, as evidenced by the irregular shape in the wall. I said, "No. That is not a break in the wall, and the wall has not moved. That is an enduring sign of the great skill of the builders who were deprived of needed form lumber and had to make do with what was available." 133 Cast your bread stadium bleachers on steep incline 1969 Stadium View Drive Jack Bridges, director of the Baptist Bible Fellowship International with Pastor Laibib Mikhail from Egypt. 1969 and 2004 we made a ministry trip to Lebanon and wanted to stay up at the empty campsite for 9 days. The brethren were very hesitant, fearing something might happen to us. I commented that I knew every square meter of this camp, and that if we did slip and die, there would be no more beautiful and blessed place in the world to die than there. The brethren relented. What could they do with such determined old people? Camp dedication in Beit Mendera. After a Herculean effort in construction, the first camp was held in August 1969 in the new conference center. It was the largest camp attendance to date, 134 at home in Special Ministries Camp Group, 1969, Junior Camp 1970 135 Cast Your Bread Washing Dishes Camp Snack Shop Volleyball Finalists, 1970, Volleyball Court 1970 with 100 campers the first week and 60 the second week. Missionary Clyde Ains brought his people from Beirut. Pastor Laibib Mikhail from Egypt brought several people with him and was the camp speaker. It was a blessed occasion and a great beginning for this new emphasis on camp ministry that would gradually expand. The Tripoli brethren were really excited and blessed. Camp ministry expanded the following year of 1970 marked the incorporation of a 2-week-long junior camp in addition to the regular family camp of 2 weeks with both young and old. 100 attended the first week of the family camp, and 60 attended the second week. The junior camp for 2 weeks was well attended and would soon grow to an attendance of over 115 campers and staff from Beirut. 136 big tent entrance. Big tent erected every camp season. Group exercises on field. Junior campers inside big tent singing in service in tent. 1970 137 Cast Your Bread in Tripoli. The 6 teachers plus counselors received a new vision of what God could do with this ministry for juniors. Many were saved, and few left without professing Christ as Savior. Tears flowed freely down the cheeks of a little girl for 5 minutes. When the invitation was given to accept Christ, she came forward with her teacher. The children learned so much about Bible doctrine as well as many Bible verses. Many gave clear and thrilling testimonies around a large campfire the last night. Here was abundant proof that God was greatly blessing this new endeavor that would result in the advancement of church ministry in this land so firmly locked up in religious fanaticism. The camp ministry continued to grow in numbers and in spiritual impact on the campers, both in the junior and family camps. Junior camps were really alive. Many campers found Christ as Savior, and others were strengthened in their faith. Some of my most amusing memories are of Saturday, bath day at junior camp. Hot water came from metal barrels that were placed above the toilet blocks, to be heated by the sun. Real solar hot water. The older young men made an assembly line to bathe the boys caked with dirt. 2 were inside, one would scrub the victim with a large soapy brush, and another would rinse off the soap and hand the victim out the door to another who would rub him dry. In spite of the squealing and screaming, the juniors loved the fun. Camp ministry involved a lot of hard work, but the ministry was going well with results that exceeded our expectations for the short term. But ominous events were looming on the horizon. These events would change the entire trajectory of our lives. But God, who is never surprised, would through it all bring blessings beyond our imagination. 138.